everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be my fall recommendations video, which is going to consist of books that I've previously read either in other spooky seasons or just other times that I feel like would be very good for spooky season, or just fall in general, not just for like Halloween type books. So I've put out my fall TBR, which is obviously books that I haven't yet read, but that I thought would be good for fall. So this one is just going to be my recommendations of books that I've already read. I might not be the best at like telling the synopsis just because once I read a book, I generally forget a lot about it, so I might not be the best at saying what the synopsis is. I do have my phone, so I'm going to be looking at Goodreads quite a bit, as well as my list. I have different categories. So I have witchy books, thriller slash horror, middle grade slash YA, dark academia, graphic novels, and fantasy. I have quite a few to get through, so let's just get started. Some of these can apply to more than one category. For instance, I have one that's like a witchy book, but that's also middle grade, or witchy and graphic novel, or fantasy and witchy, whatever. I'm just gonna put them in one category and then not mention them again because that would just be annoying. So yeah, let's go. So the first one we have is The Once and Future Witches. We have our three sisters, and it's set in 1893 in New Salem. They joined the women's suffragette movement, and they kind of turned that into like a witches movement. There's a lot of like town drama, political drama, stuff with the witches. There's also a lot of magic, and it says that they have to delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bond between them if they want to survive. And this one I really enjoyed. So the next one is Payback's a Witch. And this one we have our main character, Emmy, and she is a witch, but she's not a very powerful one. So to be a powerful witch, you have to stay in this hometown of Thistle Grove, and that's kind of like where your power draws from, I believe from like the ley line. As you can probably tell by the cover, it's definitely more of a witchy rom-com. It's set in present day, and I really like this one. It's very cozy, it's very cute. It has more depth to the magic than most witchy rom-coms do, and I would really recommend this one. Okay, this next one is probably so far the top 3 in 2023 for me, and that is Wayward. This one I loved so much. We have our 3 main characters. We have in 2019, we have Kate, 1619 we have Alpha, and 1942 we have Violet. So they're each going through kind of their own issues, and they're all interconnected, and their stories become woven together by the end, being kind of like repressed in their society in different ways, whether it's with romantic relationships, familial, to do with their magic, stuff like that. I do highly recommend this one. I've really only seen good reviews of this, and I loved it a lot. So for our last one in the witchy category is another rom-com, and it's The Ex-Hex. Both this one and Payback's a Witch have sequels. The sequel for this one is The Kiss Curse, and I believe Payback's a Witch actually has like a 3rd one and maybe even a 4th one that's about to come out or will be coming out next year. I forget. But The Ex-Hex was my first witchy rom-com, and I loved it. It definitely made me fall in love with the genre. So we have our main character Vivi, and on the back it says never mix vodka and witchcraft, which I thought was so funny. And she ends up drunkenly putting a hex on her ex. And then I believe the story takes place 10 years later, and her ex comes back to town, and you kind of just have to see how that plays out, see if this hex did anything, and yeah, so this one is really good. I haven't picked up the sequel, but I'm hoping to soon. I have both the sequel for this one and Payback's a Witch. The next category is thriller slash horror. I believe only one would classify as horror, and even then I'm not sure, and I think it's YA horror, but it is Clown in a Cornfield. So this one I read last year, and I actually really liked it. I didn't think I was going to, but I really did enjoy it. It's set in a very small town. We have our main character Quinn, and her dad had just moved to this small town. She's kind of just getting to know everyone. She starts the semester, so it's set in fall, obviously near Halloween, and she ends up going to a Halloween party that is surrounding like a cornfield. A bunch of stuff starts to happen. It goes awry. It's very dramatic, it's very scary, at least it was to me, and I just really love this one. I do have the sequel that I'm hoping to get to this year that I mentioned in my fall TBR video. Another one is Daisy Darker, and this one I believe came out last year, and I read it then and I absolutely loved it. I've seen mixed reviews. People either love it or they hate it, and I loved it. We have our main character Daisy, and she's very close with her grandma. Her family though is kind of estranged, and she has to go home along with the rest of them because the grandma kind of like called them all to her manor. It's very spooky. It's kind of like a locked door mystery. As the night progresses, people are being killed throughout the house, and there's clues being unraveled throughout, and there's a big twist, of course there is. I loved this one so much. I loved the ending, and I've seen people that hated the ending, but I really loved it. Another one is Home Before Dark, and this one's kind of like a classic haunted manor, haunted mansion ghost story with a bit of a twist, and this one I loved. I think it might have been my first or second Riley Sager book. I absolutely loved it, and I recommend it to pretty much everyone when they ask like which one of his they should read, and I always say this one. I think you should go into it knowing as little as possible, so I'm just gonna leave you with that, but I really love this one. And I also love his newest one, The Only One Left. This one I would highly recommend. I think it would make a great limited series on like Netflix or something. So we have our main character, and she goes to become a care aide for an elderly woman in her huge manor on a cliff. There was a big family massacre that happened there decades before, and everyone believed that this elderly woman committed the crime. There's so many twists and turns, and you don't know who to trust. It just made for such an unbelievable story. It unraveled so well, and I loved this one. And the last one that I have is My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I think this one actually might be categorized as horror, not thriller, but this one is amazing. We have two best friends that are sophomores in high school, Abby and Gretchen, and they go into the woods one spooky night, and when they come out, Gretchen's acting very different, and Abby's just kind of wondering what's going on. Everyone's noticing that Gretchen's acting weird. Everyone kind of has their own theory. She completely changes, and there's a lot of spooky stuff that goes on. I would really recommend this. It's very campy. Grady Hendrix has very like campy books. I would actually also recommend the Southern Book Club Guides to Slaying Vampires. I also love that one. But yes, this one is very good. So for middle grade or YA, I actually haven't read this one, but I have watched it, and that is Kiki's Delivery Service. This movie is so cute, and this one is actually really short, so I'm thinking I'm going to read it this month or in October. This one I'm not going to go into too much just because I don't know what is different between the book or the movie. I would really recommend the movie, but basically we have Kiki, our main character, and she is a witch, and she kind of opens a delivery service. There's stuff that goes wrong. She's kind of learning the tricks of the trade as she goes, and yeah, so this one is very cute. Another one is a trilogy, and it's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This one, I really didn't like the third book at all, at least not the last half. I really didn't like it, but I loved the first two. I feel like almost everyone's heard of this series, but it's very good. We have our main character, Pip. She's in high school. She starts a project for school, and she kind of wants to do her own little investigation of a murder case that happened a few years prior in her hometown. And the case is pretty much solved in everyone's eyes. Everyone hates the family of the boy that was convicted for this crime, although he ends up dying a few years after his conviction, so she can't talk to him, and she obviously can't talk to the victim. So she kind of starts her own investigation, and you kind of see that unfold. I really like this one. I think a lot of people really like this one. I would really recommend it. Okay, so the next category is dark academia, and there's so many that you could put in this category, but I've narrowed it down to 3. So first we have Ninth House, and this isn't just your typical dark academia, it's also kind of fantasy or magical realism. It takes place at Yale, and our main character winds up there because she's been recruited by a society that kind of babysits all the other secret societies at Yale. They kind of make sure that everyone's keeping their magic in check, and she can see ghosts or spirits, and so she's been recruited to kind of help out the society, watch over all the others. There's a lot more that happens, but I'm not going to go into it. There is a sequel, Hellbent, which I haven't read yet. This one isn't for everyone. I have seen mixed reviews. A lot of people don't like it. I loved it, and so did so many others. I would just really recommend this one. It's also really cool because it does take place at Yale, and there is a campus map. And so yeah, I love this one. Okay, so this one's kind of cheating because I haven't finished it, and I'm actually only 60 pages in, but that is Babel or Babel. I've heard it said both ways. And this one is kind of like peak dark academia with some magic in it, and a lot of people really love this one. So we have your main character, Robin, and he was brought over to London by a professor, a scholar, and he is taught a bunch of different languages, and then he ends up going to school at Oxford. There's a whole lot happening. I don't actually really know a ton about what's going on, especially because I'm only 60 pages in, and I really want to stay as blind as possible. I know this is huge on colonialism, and I love that aspect aspect of it, and I really do enjoy that conversation about colonialism, and I think it's something that, you know, we should all keep in mind and keep at the forefront. So I'm really happy that that is brought up in such a popular book. Okay, so I have two categories left. There's graphic novels and fantasy. For the first graphic novel, we have Unfamiliar, and the cover is so cute. This one we have our main character Planchette, and she moves to a new town, and she finds out that her new home is haunted, and she has to kind of make friends quickly around town to help her like de-haunt her house. And this one is just so adorable. I love the art style. I love the color palette. It's just amazing. The next one is Coven, and this involves our main character MZ and her parents. They live in California and they move back to upstate New York. Emmy has always lived in California. However, her parents lived in upstate New York before relocating to California. They've never been back to visit, and it turns out it's because her family comes from a line of witches and a coven. MZ is kind of pulled from all of her friends and everything she knows while she's in high school, including her girlfriend, to move back to upstate New York, so she's very unhappy. But once she kind of learns about her magic, as you can tell from the cover, she kind of starts harnessing it and she accepts it. Kind of about growing up and coming of age, making new friends with also this side of magic and harnessing it, learning all about it. I really like this one. Another one is Crumbs, and this one we have our main character Ray, and she is a witch and she has a crush on Lori, and he works at a magical bakery in town. She's a regular at the bakery and they both kind of have a crush on each other. She starts a new corporate job at the lab where she can use her magical powers. Their relationship starts kind of suffering, and you kind of just see how they can overcome that, as well as just all the magic involved. The cover is adorable, and this one was just so much fun to read. This last one is a special edition kind of bind up of a bunch of volumes of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina graphic novel. The Netflix show was based on these graphic novels, and the graphic novel is actually kind of scary. Like, I found myself getting very spooked out at night. For instance, here's one of the artwork pieces. I actually love it so much, but this is definitely a very spooky one. It's not cute like my others, but I would really highly recommend this. So now I just have a few left for fantasy. And the first one is Zodiac Academy, and this series I'm obsessed with. I'm currently on the 6th and I'm almost done. I can't wait to start the 7th. I believe there's 9 now, and there's a few novellas as well. I've already gone into the series like quite a bit in other videos, but basically we have our two main characters, Tori and Darcy, and they are twins living in the mortal world. However, they find out that they were born in the Fae world, this magical Fae world, and they're brought back and they have to attend a university academy to learn how to harness all their magic and learn all about it, and then maybe take over the throne. There's a ton of drama, there's a ton of romance, there's a ton of dark stuff happening, and I just absolutely love this series. The next one is one that I'm currently reading, but I'm almost done, and that is Shady Hollow. This one I also recently mentioned. I would really recommend this one. We have our main character, Vera Vixen, and she is a fox and she's a reporter in the town of Shady Hollow. Shady Hollow is a village of animals that all speak and talk, and there's a coffee shop, police, a bookstore, a newspaper. It's a fully functioning society, and I absolutely love it. It starts off with the murder of one of the town's creatures, and he's a toad. And Vera kind of gets the vibe that the police aren't really doing their job. They've never dealt with something like this before. So she kind of takes it upon herself to look into this herself and investigate. I'm really loving this one. I cannot wait to start the sequel. There's a third one already out. And then I believe there's a fourth one that's a novella, and I'm not sure if it's out yet. Another one is Vamps, and this one came out last January. I absolutely loved this one. We have our main character Dylan, and he just found out that he's half vampire. So he is sent to a vampire academy in the Swiss Alps. He's from Ireland, and his mom kind of abandoned him and his dad when he was younger, and he's never really known why, but his dad has always been very defensive of his mom. So he ends up going to this academy. He's trying to just learn all about being a vampire, whereas all of his classmates already knew they were vampires and have a huge advantage to him. He goes to a bunch of classes, and there's also some, not like quests, but like dramatic tests and stuff like that. So I really like this one, and I believe there's a sequel coming out. And the last one I have is One Dark Window, and this one I absolutely loved. I've talked about this a few times, so I'm not going to go too much into it, and there is a sequel coming out soon. We have our main character Elspeth, and she lives in a small town that was kind of plagued by black magic, and when she was younger she was kind of hit with it, but it was all kept a secret because once you're touched with this black magic, it's a fever, and you have to be killed. I believe. And ever since then, she has had a voice in her head that she calls the nightmare, and she's kept that a secret from everyone just because she knows she would get in huge trouble and probably be forced to die if anyone found out about it. There's like a quest going on. There's also like a found family aspect as she meets up with this group of people. There's like political stuff going on with the kingdom. I don't want to say too much, but I really highly recommend this one, and I cannot wait for the sequel. Okay, so those are my fall recommendations based on books that I've read in the last year or two, and I love them all so much. So I hope you can read some of them if you haven't already, and please let me know what you think if you do end up reading them. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!